Hey book lover, I'm Kay and welcome to my channel. Today we're heading to Avonlea as I read Anne of Green Gables for the very first time. I can't wait to bring you along. I am 3 chapters through Anne of Green Gables, my first time ever reading it. I just adore the writing style in this book. I can see why it is so beloved, why it's considered one of the coziest books ever. I just love L.M. Montgomery's her descriptions and just how sweet the storytelling is. I absolutely adore Anne. I think she is so wonderful, so funny, so relatable. This poor girl, she is so starved for companionship. I just did the first 3 chapters, so she is now at Green Gables. She doesn't think she's gonna get to stay there. It's just really heartbreaking to read. The last sentence of the last chapter I read was something like, and there was a child who cried herself to sleep that night. So sad, so sad. So I'm hoping that Matthew Cuthbert, I think his name is, I hope he really pulls through and gets Marilla to agree to keeping Anne, which I think he will somehow. But she seems super anti having a girl and has no compassion for this girl. So I hope that changes. It's just so cute so far. I am just adoring the writing and absolutely loving Anne, and I just can't wait to just read her talking more, because her talking is a whole page, because she just goes on and it's very train of thought. She says everything that's in her mind and it just all comes out, whether it seems connected or not to her last sentence. It's so cute. I'm loving it. I'm here for a 50% check-in. I actually wanted to update you when I was at the 25% mark, but I kept reading and I just didn't have a time that I could sit in front of my camera for a minute. So here I am, Sunday afternoon after church, ready to be cozy and read for the rest of the day. I'm hoping to finish this either today or tomorrow. 50% into Anne of Green Gables, and I just want to say I still adore Anne. Several videos ago, I asked my booktuber friends if they could have coffee with any fictional character, who would they love to sit down and have a coffee with, and so many people said Anne Shirley. And I totally understand why so many people would want to sit down and have a conversation with this girl, because boy, she is for sure one of the most interesting, funny, relatable characters that I feel like I've ever read, and she's literally an 11-year-old girl. So I am adoring this so much. I have a little bit of mixed feelings about Marilla, and I don't know if maybe it's just the time that this was written in. I can see her heart softening towards Anne, and I think that's really great and sweet, but her constant berating Anne for her imagination makes me so sad as a mom, because I feel like imagination is where creativity stems from, and we live in this world nowadays where it seems like instead of creativity we just have screens everywhere. And I read this quote somewhere that said, don't steal boredom from children, because if they aren't bored, we're gonna have writers that never write, painters that never paint, and so on from there. I don't want to get into a whole parenting discussion over it. It's more so just that I think imagination is so important for children, and living in the world we do now, it just makes me sad seeing imagination in this book be something that, one, Anne is so passionate about, and I think that is so great, but just Marilla's constant you know, that imagination of yours is just gonna get you in trouble. And like, I can see to an extent, because one of the chapters I just read was the ghosty chapter where she thought the woods was haunted. And I do think imagination can be dangerous when it hits that territory. But just like dreaming and naming things like the Lake of Shining Waters and, you know, things like that, I love it. I adore it. So mixed feelings on Marilla. I hope it changes completely by the end, but she's not a bad character. I understand that Anne is a child, and Anne also has to be punished for things that she does. And I love that Matthew and Marilla gave Anne this home. And so there's so much about this that I'm loving and adoring. It's just every single time Anne gets berated for having her imagination, it breaks my heart a little bit more and more each time. Also, I need to do some research to see if when this was originally published, if it was one of those stories that was published like in installments, because every chapter is like an episode almost. Like there's a beginning, a clear ending to every single chapter. There's like a turning point in every chapter. Each chapter is like its own little story in itself. Obviously, you have to watch season 1. You have to read the beginning to see like who the characters are and how they got to where they are. I'm just loving seeing this everyday life, these things that excite Anne, seeing her going to school, seeing her make friends, and seeing her learn these lessons in life. It's something that I feel like years down the road, if I just wanted to pick it up and read a couple chapters from Anne of Green Gables, I could totally just pick this up and read it and know who the characters are and kind of know what's going on and get a really impactful lesson from that. Anne of Green Gables, I am for sure absolutely adoring it, and I will check in maybe at 75% or maybe when I'm finished with it. I'm not 100% sure. When I need to check in next, that will be when I check in. I finally finished Anne of Green Gables this morning. Sorry, Zion is in the room, so he's probably going to be a little chatty. But I absolutely loved this. I haven't gone through my whole system rating yet, but this is a 5-star for sure. The lessons in this, the faith in this, the atmosphere in this, it was so good. So by the end of this, I do think Marilla grew on me. I wish I had more of her backstory to know just kind of why she's just so rigid about things. I'm so worried I'm gonna open a can of worms over my thoughts earlier. I do think she grew on me, and I could see towards the end just how it would be really frustrating if you were constantly telling a child you were supposed to be looking after to do their responsibilities and they're not doing their responsibilities. It's like, okay, I could see that a little bit more, giving her grace. But one thing that I did notice about this in the faith content, and her faith literally grew from no background at all in the beginning of this to the end. She's just saying prayers about things, and I absolutely loved that. And even her first prayer in this book, Marilla was kind of like, oh my gosh, that was a horrible prayer. Like there was no reverence to the Lord essentially in it, but I absolutely adored it. I thought it was such a perfect childlike prayer that religion was almost more of a duty to Marilla, and to Anne throughout the story you could see it was just more about the relationship with the Lord, and I absolutely loved those themes that went through this. There's also a scene where Anne was looking at a picture, like a painting of Jesus with some children, and she was just kind of like imagining like what that would have been like. Why does he look so sad in all these photos? I feel like he would actually be really happy, and it was just so sweet. So the faith content wasn't like, you know, this huge thing where there's Bible verses throughout the whole story, but the themes that were woven throughout were so just well done. And when it came to Anne, I loved seeing her story growing from being a child to being a young woman, and all I can say is I did not expect to cry so much this morning as I was finishing this book. I had to collect my thoughts before I could come on here and tell you what I actually thought of the end. I was reading last night and I got to the part with Matthew and how he insisted that Anne have the puffed sleeves. And when I read that part, I literally got goosebumps because I was just thinking about how just sweet that was for him to notice Anne was dressed differently than the other girls and things like that, and then to give her something that she so dearly wanted was like the most perfect gift that Anne could have received. And so I totally, completely, I've got to be quick at finishing this thing up because my battery just died and I'm on my last battery and I think it's only like half charged. The whole thing with Matthew, I just adored his relationship with Anne from the very, very beginning. And I think it's so sweet to see the contrast of just how he just like attached to Anne right away and they were kindred spirits, as she would say. But then seeing Marilla soften through the whole story towards Anne more and more, instead of it being like this big inconvenience of a girl at their house that they weren't expecting, to being a like flesh and blood daughter to her. I thought that was so, so sweet. The writing through this whole thing was absolutely incredible and amazing. And I love classic stories because they are just so real. They're just so everyday life type of things that happen. And it's always so interesting to me because when I read things from this time, like this was, I think 1908 is when it was published. When I read things in the classics and I think of today, like obviously things are very different today than they were over 100 years ago when this was written, but at the same time, it's so similar. Humanity is humanity, and the nature of humanity doesn't change, and I just think that's so beautiful, and that's one of the things I love reflecting on when I read classical books. But the ending, you guys, I don't want to go into too many like big spoilers because I want anybody to be able to watch this, but then again, this is also a 100-year-old classic book, so is it really a spoiler at this point? The end of it was so well done. Everything was wrapped up and tied together so beautifully. I got a kick out of Anne's relationship with Gilbert. The whole book, that was just one of the funniest parts to me. And then just the ending was just so well done, so well done. It was a bittersweet ending, but every single loose end was tied up and you just saw this huge transformation in Anne. You saw this transformation in Marilla, and you saw in Miss Rachel Lynde, you saw transformation. So the character growth in not only Anne, but the other characters in this, so good. So I absolutely adore Anne of Green Gables. I don't know what else I'd want to say on this at the present moment. I think I'll read a couple of my favorite quotes to you. It was just so well done, and I highly recommend this. If you haven't read Anne of Green Gables, pick this up sooner than later because you will not regret it. It was just so good, so sweet, and also really easy to understand as a classic because I've struggled with some classics just being like way too hard for comprehension. Like earlier this year, I read Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, and it was a really good book, but there were political things that totally went over my head when I read Anna Karenina, and I loved that book, and the storyline was also amazing. But Anne of Green Gables, I feel like you could hand this to a preteen. I think it's technically a middle grade, but I feel like you could hand this to a preteen and they could read it and totally understand it. So let me read a couple of my favorite quotes from this book to close us out. I just want to go ahead and say now, thank you so much for watching this little mini reading vlog. If you've read Anne of Green Gables, let me know in the comments what you think of it. When did you read this for the first time? If you like these like designated reading vlogs to classics, let me know because that's something I would be open to doing. I feel like reading vlogs are harder with books that aren't classics because I'm more prone to give away like huge spoilers, whereas if it's a classic, I don't know what you would consider a spoiler. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really does help me out so much, especially if you like reading Christian fiction books. I'm your gal, and I've got a few other gals I can refer you to also. I'm gonna read a few of my favorite quotes and then say goodbye. So this first one, an introduction to Matthew. He was the shyest man alive and hated to have to go among strangers or to any place where he might have to talk. This one's so cute. It's delightful when your imaginations come true, isn't it? This one was interesting. I'm so fond of romantic things, and a graveyard full of buried hopes is about as romantic a thing as one can imagine, isn't it? I'm rather glad I have one. Yeah, and some of these just being so out of context is so funny. The title of this chapter I thought was so funny. Rachel Lynde is properly horrified. I think that's like my favorite chapter title in existence. And also, we should bring chapter titles back. It's lovely to be going home and know it's home. This is something that Matthew told Anne. Don't give up all your romance, Anne, he whispered shyly. A little of it is a good thing. Not too much, of course, but keep a little of it, Anne. Keep a little of it. It's always wrong to do anything you can't tell a minister's wife. It's as good as an extra conscience to have a minister's wife for your friend. I am not a minister's wife and none of my friends are ministers' wives, but I just thought that was super funny. I'll end it with this one. There's so many more quotes in here that I absolutely adored and loved. I just wanted to share a few of them with you, but I'll end it with this one. But the best thing of it all was coming home.